Welcome back, everyone. Oz here, and today I've got some Boomers Being Fools for you all. This one seems to be a popular favorite amongst y'all, so hope y'all enjoy this episode. Grover in a pink dress. Boomer at Aldi thinks leaving your quarter in the cart is illegal. Boomer story. I always leave the quarter in the carts when I return them because of my mother, who would do the same. She always said that it's a very small thing from you that could mean a lot more for someone. She said that when I was young and she was struggling, she went to the local A&P and forgot her quarter in the car and had to walk back, in the rain, with a screaming baby to get one. That brings us to today. After putting the cart back, a boomer woman who was just idling in the cart return area, it was raining and she looked like she was waiting for a ride, goes, "Oh honey, you forgot your quarter." I kindly explained to her that I didn't need it. I go to turn to walk out of the rain and she lightly touches my arm. "Honey, you have to take your quarter back. I can show you." I then tell her how it's just a quarter and I'm paying it forward. This was too much for the boomer brain and she got angry. She starts telling me it's illegal to leave US currency laying around and how a homeless person could pick it up. At this moment, I began to walk away and she raised her voice, almost yelling about how she was going to get the manager. I turned to her and just went, "No thank you, I'm good. Have a good day," and just walked to my car. Why is it that everything they don't like or understand is illegal? What would the manager do? I bought and paid for my groceries. Too long didn't read. Boomer thinks leaving the quarter in the cart is illegal and wanted to get the grocery manager to yell at me. Honestly, the most depressingly telling part about this is the "what if a homeless person picks it up?" Oh no, egads, a whole quarter. Oh no, society's gonna crumble. The hell are they gonna do with that? Get a gumball? Like, come on. A whole quarter. Spectre J. Sir, I don't even work here. Boomer story. So this just happened to me yesterday afternoon. I work in pest control, one of the big companies, and we service a well-known farm supply store. I'm doing my usual inspection, checking things out in the birdseed aisle, when this boomer couple comes down the aisle. I make sure my equipment and I are not blocking the whole aisle and continue to check the traps. With no lead up, I hear a really loud "excuse me" from behind. I look back to see the husband looming over me, looking as though he'd been trying to get my attention for an hour. I just kind of stare blankly back and say, "Yes?" He then begins berating me for not noticing that they needed help loading several bags of feed onto their cart. I stand up, point to my hat, and say, "I'm sorry, but I don't actually work here. I'm sure if you went to the front, there's someone who could help you." The boomer man scoffs and mumbles his response as he turns back to his wife, who doesn't seem to have been taking any of this in. I continue working my way through the store into the loading dock to check the last few things. I'd been back there maybe a few minutes when someone yells across the room that I'm not allowed to be in there. Figuring it might be a brand new employee who doesn't know why I'm there, I work my way towards the voice just to discover it's Boomer Man again. I stop, turn around, and start going back to checking things, before he says he's going to call the cops. I ignore him. I've been working for around 10.5 hours at that point and just want to finish up and go home. He follows me all the way to the front desk, and as I'm having my usual discussion with the manager, he's attempting to loudly yell over me, "Is anyone in this goddamn store going to help me?" I get my signature and leave without further issue, but damn, that took the last of my energy out of me for the day. This does seem to be a pretty common trend where if you're literally doing anything in a store that's even remotely not just shopping, they're going to immediately assume that you're working there. I mean, pest control doing your daily runs, you work there. Just some teenager doing some bagging stuff for themselves, you work there. Dude wearing a blue shirt in a Best Buy, you work there. Granted, that's probably actually his fault in that case. But seriously, it's just, ugh. It does give the impression that they just cannot fathom any kind of work being done within a store that's not directly done by employees. I mean, hell, we've seen people at the receiving end of the boomer scorn just for simply using a self-help section, and then they immediately assume that because they're operating the equipment that, oh, they must be an employee, despite being told otherwise. I don't know. Will work for Doge. Huffy Boomer tells strangers at the DMV, "I have no respect," when I take a seat. But, Boomer story. I'm in my 30s and visibly pregnant. I don't think I look young, especially as I can't do Botox while pregnant, but I am 4'11", And for some reason, this has made a few older strangers assume I'm a teenager and pregnant. People younger than me generally clock me as 25 to 30, which is odd to see the difference. Anyway, I walked into the DMV, or rather Aussie equivalent, and most of the seats were taken. The people who could stand were standing behind the chairs, and the sitting area seemed to have a bit of a silent agreement to be similar to bus priority seating. I was wearing a really baggy hoodie, so my bump wasn't on display. There were about 3 random seats available when I walked in. It had been a big morning and I could not stand for an hour, so I took a seat and started reading. A woman in the standing area behind me turned to the woman beside her, tutted, and these young ones just walk in and take a seat. They don't even notice people around our age waiting. They don't even ask if we want a seat. They just sit. On and on and on. Note, there were other seats at any point she could sit down. So I stood up, put my things in the chair, and took off my hoodie, straightened out my shirt, which was positively clinging to the bump, and just looked at her like she was an idiot. Some people swiveled around to look at her, and from there, she looked at the ground embarrassed. She shut up, though. I'm sorry to say that no one clapped, and there was no impassionate, clever speech that put anyone in their place. Just silent, passive aggression on my part, so I could read my book in peace. Like, damn, lady, if you're so pissed about someone taking a seat that was open, why didn't you take it? Like, seriously. Even if it was a teenager who just wanted to sit down, there was a seat that was open, no one was taking it, so that's free game. That's just how it is. It's even funnier when you account for the fact that they made an assumption and got embarrassingly proven wrong. But, yeah. Apparently they have to be offered the seat in order to take it, which doesn't make any sense. Honestly, that does kind of open up a lot of questions in the psychology of it, of like, do they need to be offered something so it feels special and so they feel like more important before they actually take the seat? Because like it was open and it was there and there's multiple seats available. So I don't know. I think I might just be trying to apply too much logic to it. DM me your pet pics. My name is Kenneth. Boomer story. Currently sitting in my doctor's office waiting room. The medical assistant comes out and calls for J. Edgar. Boomer nearly runs down this lady trying to get to the door quicker and says, "My name is Kenneth." And she goes, "I've called J. Edgar." Boomer says, "But my name is Kenneth." She goes, "I'm calling for Edgar." And she points to the lady behind him. Kenneth grumbled and headed back to his seat. Not too bad, but was funny to see. Edit for anyone saying his hearing is bad, it wasn't that. Context: it's a huge specialty clinic with probably 8 doctors and 15 plus PAs and NPs, 20 plus MAs, a dozen phlebotomists, a dozen receptionists. It's a massive setup. The waiting room seats 3 dozen people easily, and it was packed, so like 30 plus people in our section. We had just checked in and walked to sit down. Within 20 seconds, the girl came out and called for J. Edgar. Despite the fact that he had just checked in and sees 30 people waiting, he somehow thinks the girl is trying to call him, but has gotten his name wrong. Twice. Like, hey, it's my turn, but my name isn't J. Edgar, and now I'm mildly peeved you've mixed up my name. Or, alternate theory provided by other commenters, he tried to give his name so she'd take him first. I've heard horror stories of this happening to Starbucks baristas where they'll call out someone's name for their order, and like, someone will just scurry up to the front and go, actually my name's like, insert name here. And of course, okay, cool. I didn't call you. I'll call you when your order's ready. No, but I'm right here. And so on and so forth. I feel like if it's common enough to happen at a Starbucks barista to the point where it's a common joke among them, it probably happens in an ungodly amount in patient waiting rooms and just other shenanigans and nonsense similar. Actually, I'd be willing to bet that any part that requires your name to be called, there's probably someone who's gonna pull this kind of stuff. And I'm such a socially awkward goober that I'll wait for my name to be called twice before I go to actually pick it up because I'm worried that someone just happens to share the same first name as me, so, just want to make sure that I'm not going to be awkward and try to grab someone else's order or, be the wrong patient and get called into someone else's appointment or so on and so forth. And while my brain tells me that this is a statistical anomaly and unlikely to happen, I'm still going to pretty much just double check that it's actually me being called and give it a little bit of space. Fun display 7574. Boomer doesn't understand reserved seating. I've always been a big movie guy. I love going to the theater, and when it's a big time release, I love going to the first showing if possible. When COVID hit, that was a big heartbreaker for me. So naturally, when things opened up, I was pumped to go to the movies again. Even better that my local theaters upgraded to premium reserve seating during the shutdown. No more showing up an hour or two early to get the good seats. When the new Top Gun came out, they did fan showings a few days early. I booked my ticket a month prior, as soon as pre-sales started, in my favorite seat in the house, front row behind the rail so I can prop up my long-ass legs. I burn a fatty in the parking lot, get my snacks, and stroll in right after the house lights go down. Theater is packed. But I have a reserved seat right in the middle of the row. I navigate through the crowded aisle to where my empty seat should be. But lo and behold, there's a boomer sitting there. Now, I'm pretty big, so I question myself. I go back and check the row, check my ticket. I'm not mistaken. There's someone else in my seat. I go back to my seat and tell the guy he's in my chair. He responds, "Well, we're all together," as he motions to presumably his wife and another couple. I just stare back at him for a moment and then, "Okay, this is my seat." He freezes up. And the Karen jumps in with, "We're all together, but there's an empty seat down there." The empty seat is at the end, behind another seat. Worse view and no room to stretch out. Not my preferred seat. I'm dumbfounded at this point. More stoned by the second, and now I'm starting to get pissed. Entitled fuckers. I choose to ignore Karen and look back at Ken. I just say, "This is my seat." Karen starts her shit again, this time with a few huffs thrown in for good measure. I turn and glare at her before repeating myself yet again to Ken. Now, Karen number 2 decides to interject herself. I ignore her too and look to Ken one last time. As I point at the ground in front of him, I forcefully say, "This is my reserved seat. Not that one down there, this one right here." He pauses for a moment, rethinking his life choices. I'm a big guy after all. The Karens start up again before he cuts them off and says they'll move. After some more grumbling, the two couples part and I take my seat between them. By the time the film starts, they've shut the fuck up and I enjoy my night of the movie. But not before I commandeer both cup holders and armrests. Man, spreading my long-ass legs as far as possible and basking in the skunkiness that I just know has clung to my hair and clothes. Bro just wanted to get high and watch Top Gun, even reserved his own seats. He spent the money for it, and that's what's important. Not to mention, they very clearly do understand what a reserved seat is, they just don't care. You pay a premium to reserve your seat, and in some cases that can be an additional $20 depending on the theater. So it's not like it's just a couple dollars. It could have been a pretty healthy chunk of change that, they were kind of just swiping and telling him to go sit somewhere else. I would have probably gotten a theater clerk at that point in time, honestly. And a lot of people do think they can get away with it because people will be too socially awkward for someone to ask if they'll move. Unfortunately for them, the guy was baked and high as hell, so a lot of social etiquette probably was out the window and he was just more focused on, I gotta sit down right now. Witchy Mama, 42. But I'm the veteran. Boomer story. I'm a disabled veteran of the U.S. Army. My state offers a special tag for disabled veterans. You have to present your discharge papers or a letter from the VA verifying you have a disability before they'll issue the tag. While I have a disability, I don't qualify for a handicap parking permit. I should note that my disability is not readily visible. You may see me walking with a limp, but that's about it. I sometimes use a cane if I'm hurting bad enough. The other day, I was out running errands and parked in a spot reserved for veterans. I like these spots because they're close to the entrance, and I was having a high-paying day. This boomer man comes towards me, yelling at me that I shouldn't park there without my husband. I'm all sorts of confused by this. Yes, I'm married, but I frequently do things without him. He keeps on telling me that I'm taking a space from an actual veteran. I ask him what he's talking about. He tells me that I have to move my car and thank my husband for his service. I give him the confused dog head tilt. Then I asked him why I would need to thank my husband when we weren't even married when I served. The spluttering and enraged look he gave me was wonderful. I blew that man's mind, which is really weird because women have served for decades. It's nothing new. I happily walked in the store using my cane while the man stormed off to his car. You just know that this dude probably had some kind of internal crisis after this encounter. I mean, when it really comes down to the brass tacks of it, he made a pretty sexist assumption and tried to start a fight and corner someone over it. And it backfired horrendously to a pretty embarrassing point. I do wonder if he even attempted to apologize or not, because, seriously. I mean, she was a veteran after all. He went through the effort to specifically tell her to thank her husband for his service after berating her and not realizing that she was in fact actually a veteran. So I do wonder if there's any kind of sympathy or remorse, or perhaps he thanked her for her service before storming off. Probably not though. That woman over there. My boomer father-in-law pressured his son into getting him a job interview only for him to try and steal the job of the CFO. Boomer story. My father-in-law is what you would call a typical boomer, and after 38 years of working at the same business, has been laid off. He just turned 59, and he's never worked for another company or looked for a job since he was a teenager. He pretty much got hired straight out of college. Despite it all, my father-in-law was convinced he'd get a new job within weeks. My father-in-law is a delusional and headstrong man, and it's been about 2 months and he hasn't even had a callback. He is spiraling. He discovered the horrors of LinkedIn and is now posting insane things on LinkedIn. Insaner than the usual LinkedIn corporate overlord nonsense. And he doesn't understand that it isn't like Facebook. My father-in-law then basically bullied my husband to arrange for him an interview for a job at his friend's company since they posted an opening on LinkedIn. The job aligned with his skills and it had a decent wage. Sure, it won't pay like his old job, but it's an easy job with fair wages, great hours, and fantastic benefits. My husband even did a couple of mock interviews with him. Now, a normal sane person would be grateful and put their best foot forward for the interview, but not my father-in-law. He was rude to the receptionist because she didn't immediately offer him refreshments. He huffed and puffed because he was upset that he had to wait. He was angry when he was told that he'd get interviewed by the operations director and the finance manager instead of the CFO. He was rude, obnoxious, and bullish throughout the interview. My father-in-law then spent half the interview shit-talking the CFO for not being a man of his word, because he was supposed to be interviewed by the CFO, but at last minute, he no longer could. And the other half of the interview he spent trying to take the CFO's job as he's better qualified. In the last 15 to 20 minutes of the interview, the CFO and CEO stepped in to say hello, and his rude ass continued to shit-talk the CFO right to his face. Straight after the interview, my husband got a call from his friend, and his friend was livid. My husband apologized profusely, and his friend was gracious enough to accept the apology. My husband and I both asked father-in-law how the interview went, and he said that he had a man-to-man with the CEO, and that limp-wrist CFO friend of my husband will soon be out of a job. The man is so far into his delusional mindset that he couldn't believe it when my husband told him he's never getting a job there. My husband spent pretty much half of the day yesterday cussing him out on the phone, and then after work, he drove down to his father's and spent another hour just calling him out on all of his shit. FYI, I know my father-in-law isn't technically a boomer, but I also call early Gen X like my father-in-law boomers, as there's sometimes just too many similarities. In my opinion, many of the Gen Xers also have the boomer mindset. Me calling Gen Xers boomers has really brought out the inner boomers in some of y'all. I'd be lying if I said that there wasn't some kind of satisfaction seeing a boomer return to the workforce and realizing, oh, wow, it is really shitty out here in the job market nowadays. Not only is almost every single resume I'm going to submit online and I'm never looking someone face to face, but they'll just reject it because, fuck it. The computer didn't see enough things it liked. There's none of that go be a hardworking, honest man and go talk to the manager directly and get him to give you a job right then and there. No. You gotta go through 18 different steps. And hell, some of them even make you take personality tests to see if you're a fit for the job, and it's generated by AI bullshit. The job market is not what it used to be 50 years ago. It is a horrifically different. Schmezelbop. How dare I love the ring that I designed? Boomer story. Just got engaged. My fiance surprised me with the proposal and a stand-in ring, and we made the choice to pick out our rings together. I chose a yellow gold setting with a blue topaz. Alert! This is upsetting the boomers. Every boomer I have shown my ring to has made some kind of snide comment, including our parents. Oh, could he not afford a diamond? Blue and gold? Is that what the kids are doing these days? We're both almost 40. You can always upgrade at a later time. But an engagement ring is supposed to be platinum and diamond. Lab grown, so it's not a real gem. I adore my ring, so whenever I get these comments, I just ignore them and watch my beautiful blue topaz sparkle. But then I started getting so many of these comments, I now say to them, these are thoughts we keep inside our head, in a really patronizing tone like they do with me. Anyone else's personal preferences called into question by stubborn boomers on a daily basis? I've already done like a lot of rants on my main channel about why just diamonds as a whole are just a scam with the whole diamond corporate conglomerate, how they're all working together now to try to stop lab grown because, you know, now it's turning out, oh shit, diamonds aren't that special because we can grow ones that are molecularly flawless in a lab and leaving the other ones in the dust. Yeah, they don't like that very much. So now it's the thing of like only a real diamond can categorize real love and all their goddamn marketing campaigns. Pretty goddamn annoying, honestly. But boomers fell like hook, line, and sink for it. You can literally pay like a lab like 1/10 of the cost and they'll grow the exact gemstone that you want and get it the perfect cut that you want, and you're not paying an arm and a leg for it. Like, I really don't understand. Rock is rock, alright? Like, come on. Yes, this one came from the earth and was probably mined by some child. But this one was grown in a lab and is pretty much perfect and exactly what I want and 1/10 of the price. Do I want the one with or without suffering? That's the real question. Lil B13. Boomer on kept yelling "Brrr" at me because I was wearing shorts. Boomer freak out. This past weekend, my family was all together for a birthday celebration. I was wearing shorts and a nice shirt. They weren't too short, completely appropriate for spending time with family. Apparently, this was too scandalous for my boomer aunt. How dare her niece wear shorts on a hot summer day? She just had to do something. As soon as she saw me, my boomer aunt started loudly saying, "Brr, Anna, brr!" Didn't even bother to say hello to me or my husband. Never said anything but brr. At first, I was just confused at what she was doing. I ignored her and started talking to my sister. Then she started getting louder, yelling, "Brr, Anna, brr!" I tried to ignore her and went to talk to people outside. My aunt followed me all while saying brr in my name. At that point, I just wanted to see how long she'd go around yelling brr, and she kept it up for around 20 minutes. I finally asked her if she needed a coat. Her only response to that was to say, "Well, you're dressed like a slut." I'm still so confused by the whole thing. I've worn shorts before to family events, so I don't see her issue. 100% just gonna call it now. She's jealous because you look better than her in shorts. Alright, look. I guarantee it. If you look better than someone, you're a slut. That's just how it is. It's a cruel dog-eat-dog world out there. No, but seriously. I do think there's probably some, like, they have some personal body image issues that they're uncomfortable with, and they feel jealous behind it. That would be my personal guess on this. Forsaken Woodpecker 1. Boomer, I've got this. Lose his arm. Boomer story. This happened several years ago, as told by a friend who was a military veteran / field medic. He was out with some friends in South Carolina where he lives, near a golf course. Boomer pulls up with a truck, pickup, natch, and starts a conversation with a few people, and mentions his plan to go into one of the water hazard little man-made ponds to retrieve balls. He has his little side business of selling them back to golfers, he boasts. Anyone within earshot warns him of the large alligator currently in said pond. Someone who works at the golf course says that it's a terrible idea. This alligator is already a problem. He's not worried. "I do this all the time! You kids are too cautious, I've got this!" Wades in. Said alligator promptly tears his arm off from the shoulder joint in front of everyone. Luckily, my field medic friend is in attendance for the show, keeps Boomer alive while waiting for the ambulance. Now, they're all waiting to get the arm back for possible reattachment. Alligator, having been so rudely interrupted during his dining plans, sits in the water with the arm in his mouth, snarling, patiently waiting for the second course. The local news shows up. The gory pics are disgusting. You can see the actual ball joint of the arm bone. Ugh, goddamn. They get the arm back eventually, but it's mangled beyond repair. Boomer sues golf club. Yeah, so this is actually probably real. I googled it. Sure enough, South Carolina, there was a golf course that had someone who had their arm torn off. Granted, this does add some new fun elements to it, like he was collecting golf balls to sell back to golfers. But yeah, this sucks. Like, fundamentally. I mean, I do feel bad that his arm was torn off, but at the same time, it's like, Buddy, you went to go play with literally an alligator. I don't know what you were expecting. They're mini dinosaurs. The man was warned there is an alligator in that pond. He said they're being cautious babies, waded into the water, got his arm ripped off. Like, don't get me wrong, I feel bad, but you did do this to yourself. And granted, this was also like 15 years ago from what I found from Googling, but at the same time, like, holy hell, dude. You picked a fight with an alligator. What were you expecting? Don't forget, this is brought to you by GamerSupps. Use code ODDS at checkout. It's basically a caffeine powder that you put in your water, and I actually really like it. I use this on a daily basis. Don't forget that every purchase you make using code ODDS directly supports the channel. And if you want a personal recommendation from me, I would either recommend the Soda Pressing Pear or Dragon Fruit Punch. Those two are currently my favorite flavors. And as a note, once we sell a certain amount of stuff, I get my own flavor and my own cup, and you all know I'm gonna choose some degenerate shit that's gonna make their PR team squirm. My goal is to make them regret partnering with me. So please, use code ODDS at checkout to make my dream come true of making a PR team squirm.